No fewer than 31 passengers and staff of Nigerian Railway Corporation (NRC) were believed to have been abducted by gunmen on Saturday at the Gunmen train substation in Edo State, while several passengers were injured. Edo State Commissioner for Information and Orientation, Mr. Chris Nehahari, disclosed this yesterday during a media briefing. The State Police Command, in a statement yesterday, said the kidnappers were herdsmen armed with AK-47 rifles. It said some of the passengers sustained bullet wounds and assured that the bush combing and rescue operation had begun to rescue the victims. Mr. Nehari disclosed that one of the kidnappers had been arrested and was currently helping the police in the investigation, while one of the victims escaped. He expressed confidence that other victims will be rescued in the coming hours. The Nigerian Railway Corporation has also announced the indefinite shutdown of the Gunmen station in Edo State. Corporation says that the decision became necessary following the rising security challenges. Meanwhile, this will not affect the Itakpe-Warri train service. Managing Director, Nigerian Railway Corporation, Mr. Fidet Oheria, says the attack on Gunmen train station will not stop the Itakpe-Warri operation. It's a lot to talk about. Very sad one this morning.
Very sad, Rufai, as you said, and very unfortunate. On a Monday morning, what we would love to talk about on a day like this is just, perhaps positive news around the economy or gains of the government around security. Unfortunately, 10 months after a similar incident on the Abuja-Kaduna train line, we have another attack on a train station, or at a train station, this time in Edo State, southern Nigeria. Now, the details you've already talked about. Unfortunately, again, despite the fact that a number of reports have said about 32 people, the exact number of people who were abducted by these, would you call them kidnappers, bandits, terrorists, no one has come out to say that they're responsible for this. We don't have the exact number of people who have been taken away. However, what we do know is that the station manager, Mr. Godwin Okpe, as well as another staff of the station, were amongst those who were taken away. Reports from eyewitnesses on ground say that the bandits or the suspected kidnappers or abductors were actually profiling some of the people that they took away. So they were looking at those who were rich, who had expensive wristwatches and the likes, just to mention a few things and characteristics around this particular incident. And then they said they came in, a number of people came in from the bush, shot sporadically into the air, and then asked the passengers who were on the platform to lay flat, and then carted away some of them into the bush and by foot herded them into the bush. And they said shortly afterwards security agencies came to the scene and were in hot pursuit of these criminals into the bush. Unfortunately, reports from the Saturday when this happened on the 7th of January about 4 p.m. in the evening, there hasn't been much in terms of recovery. There reports here and there about one or two people, one person escaping, one or two people being apprehended, and a suspect also in police custody. However, a few things to notice: the men were bearing AK-47 arms, so they were heavily armed. And then the report is that the train station is in an isolated area, and there was no security. There were no security men or women around that area. That's a red flag. Rufai, you said something, or you tweeted something about the fact that oftentimes in security in Nigeria, we are reactive rather than proactive. This was the same accusation of security agencies during the Abuja-Kaduna train incident. And you begin to wonder that, do we learn lessons from incidences in Nigeria? What kind of intelligence gathering do we do in Nigeria? Must we have situations like this before we begin to call to action, have visitations? I hear the Deputy Governor of Edo State, Mr. Philip Shuaibu, has gone there to visit. We don't want visitations. What we want is a concerted effort by security agencies to prevent incidents like this reoccurring in Nigeria. The Abuja-Kaduna train incident was one too many. We shouldn't have to have another one one for us to wake up again and decide, okay, let's start moving around and thinking, what can we do? A few things have been suggested, and I must commend the presidential candidate of the PDP, Atiku Abubakar, for a few things he said, which I very much agree with. Number one, as I mentioned earlier on, more proactive rather than reactive. Collect intelligence. Work with the local community to gather information. Many of these people live in these communities. They're eyewitnesses. How can men carry over 30 people by foot and people don't have information about that? It's suspect. And then the second thing, during the Kaduna incident, the Minister of Transportation at that point, Honorable Rotimi Amechi, had said that if the government had listened to them to buy surveillance equipment, then this wouldn't have happened. What happened to surveillance equipment? Should we not think that after what happened in Kaduna, on the train track to Kaduna, that we should equip all our train stations with equipment? These are the questions, critical questions, and I believe that we should come to a point in our country where heads have to roll. People have to be fired. Sanctions when things like this happen for negligence. Dr. Batu?
Okay. The attack on a train station and on trains the second time. When this occurred on March 28, it caused a lot of concern. And that March 28 incident, we were dealing with it up till December 5, 2022, when eventually the last batch of persons who had been abducted was released. And then when the Minister of Transportation and also the management of the Nigerian Railway Corporation said they were reopening the affected, at the time, Abuja-Kaduna train line, they said that they are taking precautions. Part of the precautions that the Minister of Transportation told us was that adequate security will be provided for passengers. That in fact, for you to board a train, you may even need to disclose your national identification number, and that there will be additional security in train stations. At the time, he didn't single out just the Abuja-Kaduna train line. He talked about the infrastructure across the country. And then, not up to 2 months after, you had this incident at Gunmen train station in Edo State. Now, in March, the train was already moving before it was attacked by bandits. In this particular case, in Gunmen, people trying to travel from that train station to Warri, they were still at the train station. So how did they gain access to that train station? How are the train stations so porous that anybody could just access it and then abduct 32 persons, including children? But the children were later released because, we were told that they thought that the children would slow down their movement. So 2 children were released. The police announced that they were going into what they call exercise bushcombing. I don't know now whether there is a directorate of forest surveillance in the police, but they said they were going to do bushcombing. So the result of that, of course, is that they were able to arrest one of the kidnappers. Another kidnapper escaped. 1 person was rescued. Other persons involved in this incident, they sustained gunshot wounds. So that is the stage where it is. The Deputy Governor has visited, the Minister of Transportation has visited, and the Minister of Transportation was quoted that they will take additional security measures. So they're just thinking of additional security measures after, this second incident has occurred. So that's what makes it, unfortunate. And then on top of all of that, they even had the infantry to tell people that the Takpe-Warri line is open. So people hearing that if you go to a train station, you could be kidnapped. Would they have the confidence to go to any other train station? So all of these, have very serious implications for the trust between the people and the state. If you could not protect people along the Abuja-Kaduna line, what is the guarantee that after the incident in Gunmen, that you'll be able to protect people who will go from Itakpe to Warri? I think we're not getting enough by way of information, and it looks clearly that the Ministry of Transportation and the Nigeria Railway Corporation, they have not learnt any concrete lessons from the incident of March 28, and hence you have this kind of situation. Considering the fact that Nigeria invested so much money in getting the rails, the rail lines working again, and then one security challenge after another, then of course it's enough to declare a state of emergency over the rail lines in Nigeria. And then, of course, it's not enough to just say we are taking additional security measures. I'll be surprised if anybody believes that this time around. So everything must be done as they have promised to make sure that these persons are rescued. The other persons that were kidnapped along the Abuja-Kaduna train line, they were in custody, they were subjected to extreme humiliation for months before that matter was eventually resolved, not necessarily because of any ingenuity on the part of the security agencies. And then this points also generally to the state of insecurity in the country and the fact that even the police command, the Edo Police Command, was gleefully saying, oh, the herdsmen were carrying AK-47. Now, part of the challenge here is to address the challenge of illegal firearms and ammunitions in wrong hands, in non-state actors. And how did they just jump to the conclusion that they were herdsmen? Do herdsmen go about wearing labels? So what the police tend to do in this environment is to just jump to certain conclusion. So the investigation must be thorough, and the police command of Edo State, and even the office of the IGP should keep people properly briefed, and the families of the affected persons should be reassured that they will regain their freedom.
Sad occurrence. If you remember, I think I probably will say it, and I said it when the March incident happened. It will happen again. And I'm not a prophet of doom. I feel for the family members, but it will happen again because it's Nigeria. And culture, we eat strategy for breakfast, and we don't learn anything. You talked about the family. Let me start from the family. Are we even sure we have a proper manifest? Hope we didn't have ticket racketeering again, that some people bought ticket through black market means. Are we even sure we have a proper record of the people that bought ticket that were waiting on the tarmac for the train? Let's start from there. So where you can't keep a proper manifest of those that bought ticket, how are we going to contact the families? In the coming days, the families will start coming. I hope the Ministry of Transport will not treat them like they treat the families of the Kaduna victims, that they pushed aside and they told they were stupid because their own people were kidnapped. We are waiting to see how the Ministry of Transport will treat them, because when they come to protest, hope we know they have a right to protest. And hope we will not use them for photo ops again after so many months. Because when they release some of them, remember how we used some people for photo ops? They went to meet the president, they were shaking hands and all, after months in captivity. Hope we are not going to do that again. We don't learn in this country. I hope we even have CCTV cameras in that train station. Hope we have technology. Hope we have security. Because the place was isolated. What security measure was? That place was miles away from the Gunmen General Hospital. Isolated there in the bush. And it's not today we've had activities of bandits around that area. But what was done? Nothing. So you see, culture will eat strategy for breakfast. What I mean is that no matter how much strategy you talk about on the pages of newspaper, if you don't have the culture to do what is right, then nothing will happen. So it will definitely happen again. It is Nigeria. I'm sure we all said that was the last time the March incident happened. And hope people will not politicize the matter. We all remember how Dr. Chinelo was shot, and she tweeted that she was shot, and how some people with certain political parties leaning started mocking Dr. Chinelo, because in Nigeria everything is politics, just like they've started again. It's bad news. We are reporting bad news because it's political season. Hope some people will not be daft enough to keep these mindsets of politics come first before the lives of people. I don't know where people even draw the line of all this nonsense they do because of politics. Let us build a country that will stand the test. So this country is great, and it has the capacity to even be greater. We can build rail lines and live it at the expense of people, and they just get damaged and they just get kidnapped. The president must take responsibility. The buck stops with him, not the Edo State Police Command. The Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN, yesterday clarified that for now, banks were only authorized to dispense the new 200, 500, and 1,000 naira banknotes through automated teller machines. The Apex Bank said it has intensified effort to ramp up circulation of the new notes. The bank also yesterday reiterated that there will be no extension of the January 2031 deadline for the return of old 200 naira, 500 naira, 1,000 naira notes to the banks. In addition, the central bank, in collaboration with National Orientation Agency, and various market associations will begin from tomorrow commence aggressive enlightenment and public awareness on the Naira redesign project, as well as the needs to properly handle the Naira notes. I mean, a lot to talk about on this, Ayo.
I'll keep this short and sweet. So just an update there. 31st of January remains sacrosanct. CBN has come out to say. So January 31st, they're going to phase out the old 200 Naira, 500 Naira, and 1,000 Naira notes. Also very important is what we've been calling for, which is more sensitization and awareness. And I like, and I'm glad that for the fact that they're starting the market women, because we've seen videos where transport workers have refused collecting these notes because they are not aware and they don't recognize these as legal tender. That's another thing. So let's take it, make it very aggressive. I wish this had started some weeks back, or perhaps immediately as part of the plans when they launched. But very important, glad they're doing this. And finally, just to mention that they talked about the fact that you can only get the new notes through the automated teller machines, your ATMs. On this show last week, we talked about the fact that at least none of us hadn't seen the notes. I'd seen it from afar, but I haven't held it. And so they're saying that what banks did was that they reserved for some VIP customers over the counters. So the CBN has mandated them, put in your ATM so that the common Nigerian can get or have access to these notes. Great one.
Dr. Watson.
Okay. When the new notes were introduced on December 15, Nigerians were given the assurance by the Central Bank of Nigeria that they will in fact get these new notes of very high quality that the CBN had made available through the mint, and that the production was done here in Nigeria. After the initial skepticism, people became interested, they became excited, but the issue here is that the banks don't even have the new notes. When you go to the banks, almost a month later, they will tell you that the notes are not available. If you go to some other possible sources, they were not available. Now a new directive has been given that the supply of notes to the banks, the dispensing of those notes should be done through the automated teller machines. Some newspapers have reported that yes, some banks have the notes, some banks don't have in their ATMs, and that in any case, the CBN spokesperson, Wani Sobe, has assured everyone that there's more than enough supply. Well, that remains to be seen, but there are persons who have also been saying that because of these initial glitches that have been observed, maybe the central bank should consider the possibility of extending the deadline from January 31. The lawmakers want the extension from January 31 to June 30. Well, the CBN has said it is willing to listen to people. Now, one of the things they intend to do is to start a mass enlightenment campaign from tomorrow. Well, maybe that mass enlightenment campaign should have started earlier, because with the introduction of the new notes on December 15, 2022, the first thing that was noticed was that people who had not been properly educated or enlightened about the new notes, they were rejecting it. And there were videos that went viral of people saying, no, give me the old note. I don't know this new note. So the enlightenment process cannot be too much to do. Now, the third point with regard to this has to do with the fact that people have raised questions about the quality of the notes. We're told that if you rub the new currency notes on a white sheet of paper or a white surface, the entanglement ink will rub off on that paper. But the managing director of the Mint has come forward to say, no, it's actually an indication of the very high security feature that have been, that has been introduced to the new, redesigned notes. And that message will have to be well amplified, so that people do not continue to relate with the notes on the basis of prejudice. But what is more important is, despite the fact that the CBN says that its intention is to reduce the amount of money in circulation and bring them within the bank, then the CBN has an obligation to still make those notes available. Because there is also the concern that, well, you have to be a big man to get the new notes. No, the Naira note is a national symbol. It's national currency. Every Nigerian, regardless of their station, whether princes or plebeians, should be able to access it. After all, it's is a value for exchange, and that doesn't know class. Everybody is part of this process.